Hello friends. I usually come to you from the outdoors. Today I'm on the indoors um, for different reasons. Not interesting. Um, Today I'm going to revisit the theme relationship. You see, to me, our relationships to whatever it might be is the key to having a good life. You see, I can say that the quality of your life is dependent on the quality of your relationships. Okay, so I'm not talking about just people. I'm not talking about like your relationship to your lover or your children or your parent, but that too, but other things as well. Um, so let's make a quick definition here that relationship is the connection between things. There's a mutual connection, okay? So there's giving and there's taking, um, and these things relate to each other, right? So um, if you have a harmonious relationship, then both things or the multitude of things that are relating to each other um, will be able to maintain their integrity and at the same time contribute to something larger. Yeah, that's pretty good. So um, we want to have harmonious relationships, right? Um, we want things to to feel good when we meet, or when we don't feel good, that we can at least feel um, accepted and heard for, if it's other people. Um, Things can make us feel better if we're feeling bad. What would that be? That's because you have a relationship to it, you know. Some people get sad, they eat chocolate, you know, they have a relationship to chocolate that makes them feel better. Um, so there's lots of ways we can relate to anything, you know. Um, so what is it that is a relationship, and what are we relating to? Well, I guess we all know what relationships are, but I like to say, um, what is my relationship to myself? Now that's kind of a weird question because I am myself, so there's no relationship there in a way. But I do have thoughts. Um, I have a physical body. I have mental thoughts, and I have a spiritual experience of my life. So these are three different ways that I can relate to myself, right? So physically, I have this body which is aging. Um, it needs food, it needs water, air, exercise, you know, rest. So these things are one way that I relate to my body. On the mental state, I think about you know, maybe my past and in my future. Um, I can think about how I want to achieve things, what I'm going to do today. Um, so I'm relating ideas to the body for some kind of manifestation, fulfillment. And then there's the spiritual relationship to myself. And we'll get that will become more apparent as we go on here. So we have relationships. We want them harmonious. Um, and so what makes the relationship harmonious? Um, what is there where if there is a conflict, it is peacefully resolved. Um, and so that there's a balance, you know, there's a balance in the relationship. And what is that? That's giving and taking, right? You can't have a relationship that is not based on giving and taking. And of course, the balance there is if you're just taking in a relationship, it's not going to be good. And if you're only giving, it's not going to be good either. So therefore, when there's something lacking, um, you feel it, you know. The worst, perhaps, is no relationship at all, or you don't even experience a relationship. There's always a relationship, but you perhaps don't experience it. Um, and this is, I think this is a common ailment. I'll call it an ailment for lots of people, because if you're not in relationship with other people, other things, then you become isolated. Um, that makes you feel lonely. Um, and it brings a feeling of suffering, you know. It's like, oh, the suffering feeling. So I used to think that suffering has to do with pain, but suffering is not so much to do with pain anymore. Anyway, uh, so what is it that we need to have a harmonious relationship, and what is it gets in the way of a harmonious relationship? Um, Let me just take a statement that I, in relationship with X, X being a variable, it could be anything. So first of all, think is like, okay, how do I experience that thing? And that's going to be based on my previous experiences, what I've been taught by my culture, my parents, my close society, uh, peers and whatnot. So that's how those things are influential in my perspective. All right, so it's important to keep that in mind for now. Um, and the other part of that question is, what is I? Um, that we went into a tiny bit before, the physical, spiritual, and mental aspect of being human, of human being. Um, so you can also think, how do I think about myself, right? So if I'm thinking that I'm a worthless person, that my value is of nothing, that I'm just a tiny speck in this great universe and therefore meaningless. So if I go around with a meaningless relationship to myself, um, then that will affect my all my other relationships because it's me relating to that. But the opposites can also be true. You can be overconfident, arrogant, you know. So then it's not a question of what is right or wrong here. Those are also in relationship, what is right and what is wrong. But it's a question of being aware of how you relate to things, what increases harmonious relationships, and um, what will hinder them. Gets in the way of a good relationship. So one key here is perspective, right? So if I take an example of myself, I was raised in America. Um, the culture there is a capitalistic, competitive culture, um, and for a lot of my life, I believe that's what was the way things are, um, and that everything could be competitive, survival of the fittest sort of thing. But as I grew older, my perspective increased. I suddenly had an awareness that, huh, everything I have, from buttons to even my body, is based on cooperation and not based on competition. Okay? So simply a button, okay, and the button is made of oil, which comes from life forms millions and millions of years ago, hundreds of millions of years ago. It's a technology to remove it from beneath the earth, to refine it, to create it with other molecules, to make a plastic. People have to do this. People have to build the machines that do this. And over the years, the knowledge has passed from one to the other. It's improved. The people make it. People ship it. So there's people involved there. So all this cooperation, and finally this button, which is worthless in itself, has come to me. Um, so relationship is actually, if you look at it, complex. Um, so how do I relate to myself in the culture that I grew up in? It's changing. Okay, I had nice parents, good parents. Um, my father was a good man, and he talked often about um, wellness. You know, how can you feel well? And it seems to me that I got a bit of the same in me. And this has to do again with how you take care of things, which is your relationship to things. So um, I have that also as part of my perspective. Um, and as I grow and I observe myself, I see that these perspectives are um, in a way limiting, right? Because if I only see this, which is my perspective, then I'm not aware of what's happening on the outsides over or behind me even. But if I learn to open up my perspective and accept that perspective that's there, but not limit myself to that, then I can see what's over here, or what's over there, or what's over me. So my perspective can increase. And as it increases because I am open to experiences that are beyond the limitations of my original um, perspective, if that makes sense to you. Um, so to increase perspective, one needs new experience. Thus, they say traveling is a great way for opening up your perspective and understanding people and cultures, etc. Kind of relationship to all these things. Yes. Um, so increasing perspective means that I have to take in more information, or that I will take in more. I'll want to if it's beneficial, if it's going to help me um, in any way. I'll let the information come into me. Let me take an example, classic one, kind of classic modern example. You're driving to work every day, and there's this blue Ford that goes zooming by, cuts you off almost, and races down the road. And you get a shock because you're still drinking your morning coffee and you're not quite awake, and this guy zooms past you, cuts you off, and you shake your fist. Yeah, that crazy guy. He should slow down. He's gonna kill somebody. Um, and it happens a couple days after days. Um, and finally, one day, maybe the guy ran out of gas or something, whatever it could be. He stops, and you stop, and you're gonna give him hell because he's driving like a maniac every day, and he's scaring the hell out of you. And then you find out um, that he's on his way. He's quite worried and upset. He has no gas now, and he can't get to where he needs to go. When where he needs to go is probably that his wife is maybe his wife is dying in a hospital, and he has to go visit her every day. And he's not too concerned about what's going on outside of him. His perspective is, I got to get to my wife, and he hurries to her, right, or his child, or whatever. Um, and so all of a sudden, your perspective of this individual has changed from a person who is egotistical and arrogant to somebody who is um, um, perhaps sad and uncertain, and it invokes in sympathy in you, right? So next time you look in your mirror and you see a coming, you pull over and you let him go. It's changed the way that you relate to it. Okay, so with an increase in perspective, your actions will change, which will, if you continue to be observant and open, will improve your relationship to whatever it is that you're looking at, right? So, but lots of times there's a price to pay. Yeah. So the price is that you no longer can limit your vision. You have been awakened, opened to the new things that are around you, and you have to relate to those. So think about nature. How do you relate to nature? People go, oh, I feel when I go out in nature, I feel good, I feel refreshed. Um, okay, so a give and take in a relationship. What do you give back to nature? You know what you get. How do you give back? And then, so the relationship, not only between yourself and the other, whatever there might be, but also your relationship to how you see yourself and how you see the other, because this will change everything, right? So I think that's what I got for you today. Hope it might have given you some insight. Peace.